We can focus much more together on global health. We have been working on providing vaccines to people also in the global south, and that could be continued so we can be better prepared for the next pandemic. But also the oceans, where we are very dependent on the health of the oceans to fight pollution, overfishing, and also plastic pollution and waste management. So there are very many areas where we can strengthen our cooperation, and also in peace and mediation, where both countries in this region, but also in other parts of the world, are playing an important role.
You spoke about peace and stability in the region and outside. The situation in Sudan, what is the position of your government in relation to what's happening in Sudan before I move to other area?
They have to lay down the arms so we can get people out. There's a terrible situation for ordinary people, for the Sudanese people, and both Norway and South Africa and very many other countries do have people inside Khartoum now, and they have to stay inside, some without food. So we urge them to put down their arms so we can get humanitarian access to the population and those people living in Khartoum.
Let's go to Europe, Eastern Europe, the raging war in Ukraine. Your country, what is the position of your country? Also looking at the role of NATO and what Russia is saying. In terms of Norway, what is your stance? How do we go about this conflict that is so difficult and will definitely have a serious impact, not only to the region, but other regions as well, particularly poorer nations?
Territorial integrity should be protected, because this is a core for peace, not only in Ukraine, but also elsewhere. So this is very important to protect. As a neighboring country to Russia, we urge them strongly to withdraw from the occupied territory so this war can come to an end.
Thank you, Minister, for your time. Minister Pandor, let's start with Sudan. Critical is Africa. Right now, the bigger nations are focused on Ukraine. The situation in Sudan.
Well, as you would be aware, in the past I have indicated my concern at the manner in which conflicts in Africa have been rendered invisible by the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And the uprising we're seeing now in Sudan is evidence of this neglect. So I think what we need to do is pay close attention to all countries on the continent where we have conflict, to ensure that we don't have these kinds of eruptions and further harm to the civilian population. So I hope that we will begin to give closer attention to Sudan, to draw the Sudanese people together and to reintroduce peace and stability to that country.
What is South Africa doing in relation to the staff in Sudan and also just ordinary South Africans who are trapped there? Are you in touch with the office in Khartoum, or are you in touch with the two generals in particular? Because we know that the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, at some point in time, he was chairing this high-level panel on Darfur and also was involved in trying to bring peace in that region, including South Sudan, the new nation. So South Africa is no stranger to trying and assist.
Well, President Ramaphosa has indicated his intention to speak to both parties, really to encourage them, as the Minister has said, to put down their arms, to return to the table of negotiation and peace. There was already a draft agreement, and while it would seem some parties are not happy with the entire content, this is no reason to take up arms. So from the leadership of South Africa, President Ramaphosa will speak to the various antagonists. And then we, as DIRCO, are in touch with our citizens and have really said to people to try to stay at home and to not put themselves in the way of harm by any means. Then we also are ready to look at what may need to happen should evacuation be the only route that we need to follow.
Minister, the other issue, the now concluded G7 summit, we know that in most cases South Africa gets invited to the G7 meeting. We read the news that the president won't make it, and there are also other reports saying that South Africa was not invited but rather the AU. What is the real position and what led to this?
Well, all I'm aware of is that there was a meeting of ministers. The summit hasn't happened as yet. So I don't know whether President Ramaphosa will be attending the summit. With respect to the ministers' meeting, South Africa was not invited. Japan chose to invite the African Union chair, so a minister from Comoros attended the meeting. This was rather unusual in that South Africa has always been invited to G7 meetings, but of course a host chooses what they do. We cannot force ourselves on them.
And then on the issue of President Putin, how far is the discussions in terms of finalizing the matter of the arrest warrant that is a stumbling block in terms of him coming to South Africa? Has Cabinet taken a decision?
Not as yet. This is a very complex matter, and I think it's a subject of discussion within government. And as I've said previously, once we have a determined view, I'm sure the President would speak to that. However, BRICS remains a forum of which Russia is a member, and I can't imagine a BRICS meeting in which Russia would not participate.
And